Sitting down just outside of the building on the staircase was a tall man with brown hair wrapped in a ponytail. "We brought them here as you asked, Mono," one of the second-year students said. "You guys can leave," Mono replied as he stood up from the staircase. The second-year students did as they were told and quickly left, leaving them to be on their own. It seems there have been rumors going around of a high-tier student hanging around with a bunch of low-tier students. Quinn then noticed Mono's wristwatch, which had the number 6 written on it. "Is it against the rules?" Vorden asked. Mono started to laugh. "Not quite, but there are some unwritten rules at the academy." He then walked over to Quinn. "You see, the moment you start treating this trash like they are useful to society, they start to get a big head." Now that Mono was close enough to Quinn, Quinn attempted to use his inspect skill, but when he cast it, the status screen that appeared was blurry. It looked like the status screen itself was melting, and all the information was unreadable. "Is it because I'm out in the sun?" Quinn thought. "Look at this scum," Mono said. "I'm only a few feet away from him, and there isn't even an ounce of fear in his eyes. I'm happy that the war started because it got rid of people like you, and only the strong survived." Quinn's blood started to boil. He hated the war and how it had taken everything away from him, including his parents. He no longer cared if he was going to take a beating or not. All he wanted to do was punch Mono in the face right there and then. At this distance, even if Quinn's punch was slow, it should still hit. Quinn couldn't hold in his anger any longer and threw out a punch, but before it could fully extend, Mono had already taken a step back, causing Quinn's fist to hit nothing but air. Vorden then took this chance to grab onto Mono. However, once again, Mono had moved before Quinn had even started his action, causing Vorden to grab nothing. "You think I'm going to let someone touch me whose ability I don't even know?" Mono said. "I didn't come here to fight you guys, today was just a warning. There are some people in this school that not even the military can touch, and if you continue acting this way, they will get involved." With that, Mono headed back up the stairs and into the second-year building. "Do you think he's serious?" Peter asked. "I know at school they didn't like this type of stuff, but it seems even worse now that we're in a military school. Why don't the teachers do something to stop it?" "Because it works in their favor," Quinn replied. "The strong bullying the weak causes the weak to go on the path to find more power. But if you were weak to begin with and don't have the family backing to help you, where would you go to get this power?" "The military," Vorden answered. "Exactly. The teachers and the school don't do anything because it benefits them. After experiencing hell for 2 years, your mind will have been broken down. You would do anything to seek power and protection, and the military can offer that for you," Quinn said. Quinn then looked at Vorden. "It might be best if we comply with their wishes and go our separate ways for now." "Why should I listen to them?" Vorden snapped back. The outburst surprised Quinn, as Vorden was strangely against his suggestion. "Look, I understand, Vorden, that you might think you are helping me and Peter, but maybe you don't understand because you've never been powerless like us. When we break their rules, they won't go for you. It will be me and Peter they will go for." Quinn hated to say this to Vorden. After all, Vorden was the first person with a high power level who didn't discriminate between people, and so far his presence had helped. Whenever Quinn and Peter walked around, the higher levels did nothing to them because of Vorden. But this had only attracted bigger fish, something that Vorden and Quinn couldn't handle, at least not yet anyway. "Fine. Have it your way," Vorden said angrily as he stormed off back to the dorm building. "Maybe we should have explained it to him better," Peter said. "No, it's fine, it's better this way," Quinn replied. Although it looked like Vorden had stormed off in anger due to Quinn's words, that wasn't true at all. Vorden was angry at the whole situation at the school. Even here, it seemed like people were telling him how he should live his life, who he could associate with, and who he could not. Vorden also didn't want Quinn to get hurt, so he knew it was the right choice. But Vorden wasn't going to just let these people get away with trying to control his life. He was going to go after them all. Layla had been tracking Quinn and the others for a while now. She was even there when Quinn was busy dealing with Mono. Although she didn't plan to help out or anything, she was just amazed that Quinn was able to attract so much attention in one day. The only thing that Layla was confused about was why did Quinn's punch seem so weak and slow. From the looks of things, it seemed like Quinn really did want to punch Mono, but that defiantly wasn't his best from what she had seen at the training center. After Vorden had stormed off, Peter and Quinn decided that it would be best that they head back to class for their next lesson. They walked for a while, but just before they got back to the first-year building, A group of first-year students were standing in front of the staircase. There were 3 of them in total, and on their wristwatch they had a power level between 2 and 2.5. What are we going to do? Dan asked for 50 credits by the end of this week. One of the boys said, I know, why did they have to pick on us just 'cause we're weaker than him? Another boy replied, credits were the school's and city's currency system. Even though they were at military school, the rest of the city functioned as normal. There were still restaurants and shops and even fun activities and games to play all around the city. If you wanted to do these things, you would have to pay with credits. Students received free food while at the school, but they also received a daily amount of 10 credits that would be sent to their wristwatch. The students were able to get more credits by performing well on missions, school activities, and rewards. Peter and Quinn continued to walk past the boys to head the class. That's when one of the boys called out to them. Wait, stop right there, you two. The boy shouted. Peter stopped immediately while Quinn carried on walking. Hey, are you listening? I said stop. The boy said. Then another boy immediately got in front of Quinn and pushed him back to where Peter was standing. Quinn was hoping another incident wouldn't occur, at least while out in the sun. If he got inside the building just in time, then he thought he would have had a fighting chance. I think I might have just solved our credits problem. You must be the only level ones in this whole school. The boy said. Hand over 10 credits each and you can go inside. But that's all the credits we have, Peter complained. Look, I don't want to do this, but if I don't, then my arse gets beat. Hand over the credits now. Peter looked at Quinn with hope in his eyes, perhaps thinking that Quinn might have been able to do something like last time, but after trying to hit Mono, he knew he would have no chance. Besides, these were level 2s, even at full strength he might not be able to beat them. Quinn decided that it would be better off to just hand over the credits anyway. It was better than losing a fight and forcing the credits over. Just then Quinn received another system message. A new quest has been given. A power level difference of 2 has been detected. Additional EXP will be awarded. Suddenly, Quinn wanted to test out his chances. The idea of gaining additional EXP and leveling up even further became really attractive to him, but Quinn wouldn't let his greed win him over. Right now there were 3 level 2 power users, but the system had only asked him to defeat one of them. The first thing Quinn needed to do was get inside so he could use his inspect skill and find out which one was named Riley. Right now if Quinn used it outside, it would only appear as a blur. In the end, Quinn decided to hand over the 10 credits. He placed his watch on the other boys and the credits were transferred over. Peter ended up doing the same, and the 2 of them were allowed to enter the building. Hey, that was a great idea, man. One of the boys said. Should we just stay out here until we find someone weaker again? What? Quinn said in his head. He was hoping that once they had paid them, the boys would enter the building, but it looked like they were going to hang outside for a while. Quinn suddenly stopped and waited. What are you two doing? Scram unless you want an ass kicking. A boy said. Then Quinn clenched his fist and shouted. Riley! All 3 boys turned their heads at the same time, but not one of them replied. Quinn bad luck continued, but he had one more plan to find out which one of them was Riley. If you pull this sort of thing again on me, Riley, you're dead. Quinn said. Suddenly the boy stood in the center of the 3 with red hair, got up and shouted. What the hell did you say to me, you little punk? Run! Run, Quinn shouted. Like a bolt of lightning, Peter and Quinn ran as fast as they could to their next class. What did you do that for? Peter asked. I just wanted to annoy them a little. Peter couldn't help but think Quinn was a little mad, but he liked the fact that Quinn didn't seem to take crap from people stronger than him and kind of looked up to him a little. Once they were just outside their class, Quinn opened up his status screen to check if the quest was still active. Good. Even though Quinn was now away from Riley, it seemed like the quest was still active and Quinn would get the EXP as long as he completed it at any time. And now he knew which one was Riley and who his first target would be. You're going to help me level up. Classes for the day had finally finished. Since it was the first day, most of the classes were just introductions and discussions about what they would learn during their time at the school. Peter and Quinn did their best to avoid most of the other students for the day, and it seemed like, after everything they had been through, they weren't going to get into any more trouble. Once classes had finished, it was time to go for dinner. Quinn still had a hunger in his stomach, so he was looking forward to dinner more than usual. This time he and Peter both sat alone at a table in the low-level area. Peter started to look around the room as if he was trying to spot someone. I don't see Vorden anywhere. Do you think he's okay? Peter asked. Quinn scouted around the room and, like Peter, couldn't see Vorden at the canteen. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Trust me when I say this, but he is a lot safer than us at this school. The two continued to eat, and once they finished dinner, they decided to head back to their dorm room. To their surprise, Vorden was already in the dorm room on his own, lying on his bed. When the two of them closed the door behind them, Vorden lifted his head and immediately smiled at Peter and Quinn. "Hey, I've been waiting for you two for a while now," Vorden said as he got off the bed. "I wanted to say sorry about earlier. I wasn't angry at you guys, just at this whole situation." When Vorden got up from the bed, Quinn noticed a slight mark on the side of his face. It was a little red and a bit swollen. "What happened to your face?" Peter asked. "Oh, this?" Vorden said as he touched the marking. "I got into a little scuffle of my own, but don't worry, I didn't lose. You don't have to worry about me, I'm strong." Then, a loud growling noise filled the room. Peter and Vorden immediately looked at Quinn, whose face had gone bright red. "Sorry. I guess I'm still hungry after dinner," Quinn said, laughing nervously. "Why don't you grab something from the convenience store?" "It's not too far away," Vorden suggested. Quinn looked at his watch and realized that even if he did go to the convenience store, he wouldn't be able to buy anything since he had no credits. But before he could say anything, Vorden came over and tapped his watch against Quinn's. "Transfer of 10 credits successful," the notification sounded. "Don't even say anything, just go grab something," Vorden said with a smile. "Thanks," Quinn replied. With that, Quinn left Peter and Vorden on their own while he rushed off to the convenience store. The store wasn't too far from the military school. If you walked out, it would take around 20 minutes. At the front of the school was a huge gate with 2 guards stationed at the entrance at all times. Only students, teachers, and certain military personnel were allowed on the school grounds. So when you exited, students were required to show their wristwatch to the guard, and the same upon entering again. Once past the gates, Quinn decided to test how much 10 stamina points really was. He started to jog at a relatively fast pace toward the convenience store. After running for about 5 minutes, he realized that he wasn't out of breath or anything like he usually would be. He decided to run even faster, eventually making it to the store in just 7 minutes. "I think I was doing about a kilometer in under 5 minutes, and I'm not even out of breath," Quinn thought. The stats given to him reflected an athlete's body. It wasn't the same weak body he had before, but at the same time, it wasn't a supernatural body that surpassed human limits. Another thing he noticed while running at night was that he could see everything super clearly. Even when there were no street lights, it was as if the moon had illuminated everything. It felt like having a type of night vision. "I know, I don't need the system to tell me when I'm hungry." When Quinn entered the convenience store, he grabbed a few of his favorite snacks, some late-night ice cream and potato chips. That's when he suddenly spotted Riley and his friends in the same store down another aisle. Quinn ducked down quietly and waited for them to finish shopping before doing anything else. "What luck! I thought I would have to track him down, but it seems like he's come right to me." While Quinn was hiding, he noticed he was in the middle of the mask section. One particular mask stood out to him. It was a fully black mask that covered the top half of the face, leaving the mouth exposed. Across the mask were blood splatters. "Kinda spooky looking," he thought. Once Riley and the others had left the store, Quinn decided to grab the mask and snacks and place them on the counter. Layla, who was also in the store, noticed the mask that Quinn had bought. "What the? It's not Halloween yet. What is he doing buying a mask like that?" she thought. Layla decided to continue following Quinn while Quinn was busy tracking Riley and his friends. "Hey, we're going to shoot some hoops in the park. You want to join?" one of the boys asked. "Nah, you know my ability is useless for playing games like that," Riley replied. "I think I'll just head back and wait by the school gate, see if there are any more suckers I can leech some credits from." The other 2 boys looked at each other, knowing what they were doing was wrong, but were only doing it because they didn't want to get beaten up by someone with a higher power level. It seemed like Riley was starting to derive some pleasure from bullying those weaker than him. Riley started heading back to school and eventually reached a small park on the way. It was an area completely devoid of people and had very few lights. There were plenty of trees for Quinn to hide behind. "It's showtime," Quinn said as he put the mask on his face. Quinn continued to follow Riley into the forest until he had eventually reached the park. It was mostly dark outside, and the only visible light in the area was coming from either the moon or the single street lamp. After checking if there were any people nearby, Quinn decided it was time to act and put on his mask. Even if he spots me now, he won't know who to come back to for revenge. Riley was currently going through the information on his watch. The glowing light displayed he had a total of 80 credits. I'm a genius, I don't know why I didn't do this sooner, Riley said. I have more than enough to pay Dan and keep some for myself. As long as I stay on Dan's good side, no one will try to attack me. As soon as Riley finished his thought, he felt a large impact on his right side. Just then Quinn had come out from the trees and threw out a kick, causing Riley to stumble to the ground. When Riley looked up, all he could see was a student wearing a horrifying mask, with a blood splat on the front. What the heck, who are you? Riley shouted. Of course, Quinn wasn't going to answer and wanted to finish the fight fast. He ran up to Riley and threw another kick, this time though Riley was prepared and lifted his hands, managing to block the kick. When Quinn's legs hit Riley's hands though, it felt like he was kicking against solid rock. Ouch! Quinn said as he quickly leapt backward to check on his leg. He lifted his trousers and saw his leg was badly hurt. It looked like his bones had even bent in slightly. What? Riley thought as he saw his attacker fall back. Then Riley spotted his attacker's wristwatch, which lit up brightly in the dark and displayed the number 1. Riley started to laugh. I see now, you're probably one of the students I took the credits from earlier, and I'm guessing you thought you could get some revenge. Quinn then quickly used his inspect skill on his opponent. HP 8 by 10. Race, human. Ability, hardening. Blood type, B+. Damn it, no wonder my leg felt like it hit a rock. Although Quinn's surprise attack didn't work, he still felt like he could win this fight. Quinn charged in once again, this time throwing a fist. The attack was faster than Riley had expected and he didn't have time to use his hardening skill and he took the blow right in the face. I think he cracked my tooth, how hard does this kid hit? Riley thought. Quinn threw another punch with his other hand, but Riley had predicted this and hardened his face in time. When Quinn's fist hit Riley's face, once again it felt like he was hitting a rock. Your fist is broken. 7 by 10 HP. Quinn then stepped back, causing distance between the two. Again, what am I meant to do if he keeps hardening his body? Then a thought came into Quinn's mind. If Riley was able to harden his body, then why didn't he just keep it hardened all the time? If he did, then Quinn's first attack wouldn't have gone through. Did this mean that Riley was only able to harden a single part of his body at a time? It was just a theory, but Quinn had nothing to lose and this gave him a plan. Quinn ran forward at Riley one more time, shouting, I'm going to punch that ugly face of yours if it's the last thing I do. Riley then hardened his face again and was ready this time, but at the last second Quinn changed his punch to a kick in the stomach, causing Riley to bend over. It worked! Then Quinn went to knee Riley in the stomach again, but at the last second stopped and punched Riley on the back of the head. Now Riley laid on the ground defenseless. Quinn gave one fast, swift attack to the back of his head and Riley was knocked out. Did you really think I would call where I was going to attack? Quinn said. Quest has been completed. Plus 50 EXP will be rewarded. Power level difference of 1. Plus 20 additional EXP will be awarded. Experience points reached 100 by 100. You have reached the maximum amount of EXP. Would you like to level up? Would I like to level up? Why even bother asking? Quinn thought. Yes. Once you have leveled up, any changes will be irreversible. Who cares? Yes. Congratulations. You are now level 2. Evolution process has started. Evolution. Suddenly, Quinn felt a large stabbing pain in his heart. It started to beat faster than it had ever done before. The blood started to rush through his veins all over his body. The pain was so much that Quinn had fallen to his knees, but he did his best to keep in any screams, fearing he would alarm anyone. The pain continued throughout his body, his broken hand started to heal along with his legs, and then a sharp stabbing pain could be felt in his teeth. The pain continued to last for a further 5 minutes until it had eventually stopped. Congratulations, you have successfully evolved. You are now a halfling. Quinn stared at the words the system gave him, but it didn't make sense to him. He had never heard of the term halfling before. Then even more messages started to appear. Your stats have increased. A new skill has been unlocked. LV1 Blood Swipe. Blood Swipe, a skill that has a range of 5 meters. It will fire out a red line of energy from the user's hands. To use the skill, the user must use their own blood, causing 1 HP per blood swipe. Before Quinn had time to check out the changes to his stats, another message had appeared, which was the most shocking of them yet. Your hunger grows. You can no longer suppress your need for blood. Your HP will decrease by -1 HP every hour until you have consumed human blood. Quinn had to take a few steps back and took a minute to take everything in. He couldn't believe what he was reading right now. After seeing that last message, there was only one thing that came into his head. I'm a vampire? Maybe Quinn was just trying to avoid the truth this whole time, but this was the finale thing to confirm it. Quinn had his suspicion after reading the book, but everything was adding up, him being weaker in the sun, his night vision, and the fact the system wanted him to drink blood. But now it was telling him that he would have to drink blood, otherwise he would die. Quinn stood there looking down at Riley, who was passed out lying on the ground. Quinn gulped his saliva down. For some reason, something was drawing him to Riley's body. Without realizing it, he was slowly moving forward, and suddenly he could see Riley's pulse beating through his neck. The blood flowing through his veins. Bonus quest granted. Consume your victim's blood to gain a stat point. How am I even meant to do this? Quinn thought as he looked Riley like a piece of meat on a plate. Layla had continued to watch Quinn since he left the convenience store. When she saw Quinn following Riley and him holding the mask, she had an idea of what Quinn was planning to do. She kept a safe distance back while staying in between the trees to avoid being seen. That's when she saw the whole thing. She saw Quinn put on the mask and beat Riley to the ground, but then she was wondering what Quinn was doing. He was kneeling on the floor as if he was in pain, and now he was looking at Riley very strangely, she thought. The next second she saw Quinn go to the ground and lift Riley's body slightly off the floor. What the? Layla said. He can't be planning to kiss him. What is wrong with this person? Quinn continued to lift Riley of the ground and place him back down again as he was deciding on what to do. Damn it, in the movies it's so much easier. Quinn said. The idea of sticking my teeth into someone, I just can't do it. In the end, Quinn decided to leave Riley's body there and head back to the school. I wonder what that was all about. In the end, he didn't do anything. Layla thought. Quinn started to head back to school and placed the mask back in his shopping bag. He noticed that the ice cream he had bought had melted, but for some reason when he looked at it, it no longer looked appetizing. There was a hunger in his stomach that he knew wouldn't be satisfied with food, and he wondered just how long he would be able to hold it in. When Quinn had finally arrived back at school, he decided to stop by the toilet first. Quinn was looking at himself in the mirror to see if there were any noticeable changes, but Quinn looked the same as before. Then Quinn lifted up his lips so he could get a better view of his teeth, but they too had stayed the same. Phew, at least it looks like no one will be able to tell. I wonder why I felt pain in my teeth at the time then. Quinn then decided to open his status screen to see if there were any differences from before now that he had leveled up and evolved. Name, Quinn Talon. Race, Halfling. HP 15 by 15. EXP 50 by 200. Strength 10. Agility 10. Stamina 10. Attribute points available, 1. Quinn's health had increased by 50% while everything else seemed to have remained the same. To be honest, Quinn was pretty bummed out about that, but just underneath he could see that there was a single attribute point. When Quinn pressed on the system, it would allow him to increase his strength, agility, or stamina by 1 point. Quinn thought about it for a while and decided to add a point to his agility. Agility 11. Even though Quinn wanted to put it into strength in case he met more people like Riley, he thought he could overcome that problem with a good beast weapon and would just be a waste of stats. What he wanted right now was to be able to be fast and agile like an assassin. Quinn wondered if there was a reason why the system had only given him 1 point, then he started to remember the additional quest that it had given him. As long as Quinn consumed the blood of his victim, it would give him a stat point. So far Quinn would have been able to have an additional 2 stat points while leveling up only gave him 1. If Quinn wanted to get stronger, then this would be the quickest way. But Quinn was unsure on whether or not he would be able to do it. He needed to try to do more research into the system and see if there was anything he could find out. He had a direction now and knew his system was similar to that of a vampire. Perhaps if he learned more about them, he would be able to figure out if there was a way around drinking the blood as well. With that, Quinn decided to head to his room where he could hear Vorden and Peter practicing together. Peter was trying his best to learn the skill book the military had given him, while Vorden was tutoring him. When Quinn had entered the room, Vorden and Peter greeted him as usual. What took you so long? Vorden asked. We thought you might have gotten lost. No, I just went exploring the city a little, Quinn replied. I'm a bit tired, I think I'm going to go bed early. Maybe we should call it a day for now as well, Peter said. With that, the group turned off the lights and went to sleep. All except for one person, that is. Quinn was unable to sleep. His stomach was in a tremendous amount of pain and he had too much on his mind. If what the message said was true, Quinn didn't have enough time to solve his problem. However, there was nothing he could do. The school had a curfew of 10 p.m. and if you were caught outside that curfew there would be major punishments. So all Quinn could do was try to get some sleep and deal with the problem in the morning. Eventually, he finally managed to close his eyes and drift off. When he woke up the next day though, the pain was worse than ever. His head was ringing and his senses felt like they were on high alert. The first thing Quinn did was open up his system. 10 hours have passed. Your hunger grows. You have lost 10 HP. HP 5 by 15. Your HP will continue to decrease every hour. This was bad. Quinn finally realized that he had no choice and didn't have time to figure out another way. He needed to drink human blood and he needed to in the next 5 hours. Even though Quinn had lost 2/3 of his HP, it didn't feel like he was hurt or dying. It wasn't like when he was out in the sun when he felt weak. Instead, it felt like all his senses were on high alert. Hey Quinn, are you alright, man? Vorden asked, seeing Quinn's face in shock. Yeah, I just got to go somewhere, Quinn said as he rushed out of the room, heading down to the canteen. Everything that happened so far was a miscalculation on Quinn's part. Although the system had told him he would lose 1 horsepower every hour, he didn't expect his body to react like this. Originally, he only planned to sleep for 5 hours as he was too worn out after the fight yesterday. That way he would still have at least 10 hours and a few hours in the morning before classes started. Quinn started to calculate how much time he had left. Breakfast was a requirement which lasted from 8 till 9. Then classes went on till 12 midday for lunch. That meant there were 4 more hours where he was required to be somewhere in the school. Of course, there was always the option of skipping, but this wasn't like regular school. The army would severely punish you and hunt you down if you did. But what did that matter if he was going to die anyway? Quinn was currently in the canteen queue to be served some food. He was breathing in deep breaths and in and out slowly. It was helping him get the hang of his heightened senses. He could hear the conversation from the other side of the room. Pots and pans clanging in the kitchen as if they were next to him. Slowly Quinn was figuring out how to ignore all these, and it was making his mind think clearer. Just then though, Riley had entered the canteen. He had no markings on his body from the fight yesterday as he had managed to make a full recovery at the medical center, but he was in a terrible mood after what had happened yesterday. As soon as he saw Quinn, he had found a target to take out all his pent-up frustration on. Riley walked past all the level ones that were in the queue until he eventually reached the spot where Quinn was standing. Hey Pipsqueak, you got a problem if I cut in front of you? Riley asked. But Quinn was too busy trying to focus the sounds out from his mind. Are you ignoring me? Today is not the day to ignore me. Riley looked at Quinn's wristwatch, seeing the number 1 shine bright on it. Immediately bad memories of yesterday's fight had come into his head and how all he wanted to do was kill the person, but that would have to wait for now and Quinn would have to do. I said don't ignore me, Riley said as he grabbed Quinn by the collar. But in that instant, Riley's face was incredibly close to Quinn's. Quinn could hear Riley's heartbeat. He could feel the blood flowing through his arm and muscles lifting his shirt. Something had taken over Quinn's body, and he immediately hit Riley's arm away and pounced on him, causing the two of them to fall to the ground. Quinn was now on top of Riley and had both his hands pinned down. Get off me, you crazy animal, Riley said, but when Riley tried to overpower Quinn and lift his hands, it was impossible. Even his ability was useless in this situation. His ability only hardened his skin, it didn't make him any more powerful. Then Quinn started to feel something growing in his mouth. Quinn placed his head just a few inches away from Riley's neck and was ready. Just as Quinn opened his mouth though, he felt someone pull him by the back of his collar and chucked him off Riley towards the people in the queue. Don't touch one of my boys, Dan said. Dan was a large man for his age with a muscular build. He didn't look like a teenage boy but more like a bald adult. Dan, thank you so much, Riley said as he stood up from the ground sweating. You're dead now, boy. As soon as Dan took one step forward though, Vorden stepped in front of Quinn with Peter. Do you really want to cause a problem? Vorden said, lifting his arm to show the power level on his wristwatch. The truth was, Vorden was only bluffing. Vorden's power very much depended on what ability he copied, and right now all he had was Peter's level 1 Earth ability. If they were to get into a fight here, there was no contest on who would win. But Vorden's plan seemed to work as Dan decided to back down and take Riley with him, but before Riley walked off, he signaled to Quinn imitating someone cutting his head off. "Oh, thank you, I can't believe that worked," Peter said, knowing Vorden's secret. After the canteen incident was over, something became clear to Quinn. That teachers wouldn't step in no matter what happened. In the canteen there were many guards standing in each corner of the room, but not once did they step in to help. After the group finished eating, it was time for them to go to their morning classes, but Quinn was unable to concentrate on anything. All he could do was try to calm himself down while in the middle of class and watch his HP slowly tick away. It was driving him insane seeing the number go down hour by hour, and now wished he had just bitten into Riley's neck yesterday. Then when it came to lunchtime, Quinn once again rushed off without Vorden and Peter, this time to the library. Only 1 out of 15 HP left. "What the hell is happening to me?" Quinn said as his hands wouldn't stop shaking. Each time Quinn's HP would go down, it was getting harder and harder to control his own body, and sooner or later he would go crazy. During class, he had multiple visions of tearing the place apart and ripping out the blood from their necks. Without realizing where he was walking to, Quinn eventually ended up in the library. In the quiet corner of the library down one of the aisles was the fiction section. "Please have something I can use," Quinn said as he took out fantasy book after fantasy book about vampires. In some of the books, vampires were able to live off animal blood, but Quinn's system clearly stated he needed human blood. Not just that, but it would be hard for him to find an animal in time. In other stories, there were talks of going to the hospital and raiding their supply, but the hospital in the city was heavily guarded and he didn't have time for that. Finally, for the first time, Quinn could feel himself getting weaker. He sat on the floor and read one last book and found nothing of use. When he closed the book, he could see Layla standing there opposite him. "Are you okay?" Layla asked, concerned for Quinn as he was starting to look very pale. Layla then bent down so she was at eye level with Quinn and placed her hand on his forehead to check his temperature. "You're so cold? Do you want me to take you to the nurse's office?" Layla asked. Quinn replied with one word. "Sorry," he said as he pulled Layla's arm, bringing her close to him, and bit into Layla's neck. As Quinn opened his mouth wide, he could feel the ends of his teeth start to grow. He didn't know what had come over him, and it was as if his body had just taken control. His mind wasn't all there. His teeth quickly sunk into Layla's skin, and at the same time, a gush of blood entered Quinn's mouth. However, Layla didn't feel any pain from this, but instead it felt like pleasure. A tingling sensation ran through her body as she felt the blood rush up through and out of her neck. Even if she wanted to resist, she couldn't. The bite seemed to have a paralysis effect. Finally, Quinn's hunger was going away. "Your hunger has decreased. Your hunger has decreased. You will no longer lose HP." Even though the messages had appeared, Quinn continued to suck Layla's blood away. HP regenerating. HP regenerating. HP 15 by 15. Then when the last message had appeared, Quinn's mind had finally come back to him. He let go of Layla, causing her body to fall to the ground. "What the?" Quinn said as he looked around himself, only then noticing Layla on the ground. "Did I do that?" Then images of what he had just done popped into his head. Although at the time he felt like he had no control, in the end, his whole body still working, causing him to remember everything he had done. A+ blood type has been absorbed. You have gained 1+ strength. Although Quinn wanted to check what the message had said and what it meant, he needed to get Layla out of the library fast. Even though they were in a quiet part of the library, there was no telling when somebody would come back. Thankfully, Quinn could see Layla breathing, so he at least knew she wasn't dead, but there were 2 clear bite marks on her neck that needed to be dealt with. Quinn then lifted Layla up with his 2 hands, finding her surprisingly lighter than he thought. As Quinn headed to the doctor's office, he couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. A part of him thought that the system might have just been playing tricks on him. Even though he could see his HP going down, he never felt like he was going to die at any point. And Quinn didn't even know if going to 0 HP meant death, but after what had happened today, he didn't want to find out. There were a few things Quinn needed to do. He needed to find out how frequent his body required blood. To do this meant he would have to once again starve his body of blood. But this time he would get blood beforehand, so he would be better prepared. But before even all that, he had another serious problem in his hands. Layla, would she remember anything when she got up? Or would Quinn have to convince her to keep it a secret? If others were to find out of his rare ability, it would start a bidding war between the private companies and military. They would do anything to get their hand on a new type of ability. Before anyone could find out about Quinn, he needed to be strong enough to protect himself. While Quinn walked down the hallway, he got quite a few looks from the other students. It wasn't strange to see someone carry an injured person in the school, but it was strange for a boy to carry a girl unless they were an item. Finally, Quinn had reached the infirmary, where there was a single female doctor named Haley, who looked to be in her early 30s. She wore round glasses and had her hair up in a ponytail. Quinn never got the chance to mess around with girls while he was at school, but looking at the doctor, he couldn't help but appreciate her natural beauty. "Another one?" Haley said. "There's a bed free at the back, take her over there." Quinn did as he was told and placed Layla gently on one of the single beds in the back. The infirmary was quite large. Quinn had never seen a school have one so big. There was a total of 30 beds, but Haley was the only one working there. At the moment, about half the beds were filled up with students, and Quinn couldn't help but notice most of them were low levels. There were the odd high levels as well. Even they got into their own fights and disagreements. Haley came over to where Quinn and Layla were and started to examine Layla. She placed her hand around her wrist and did a few other checks. That's when she noticed the 2 small hole marks on her neck. "What happened?" Haley asked. "I'm not sure, I was in the library when I saw her on the ground like that," Quinn replied. "I don't know how long she was passed out for, but the wound on her neck looks like it's already healing on its own," Haley said. "Still, I can't be sure if it will heal, and it would be a shame if a pretty girl like her got a scar." Haley then placed her hand on Layla's neck where the bite marks were. She closed her eyes and after a few seconds, lifted her hands and the bite marks had vanished. "Is it okay if I wait here for her?" Quinn asked. "Oh, young kids these days," Haley said laughing. "I didn't realize you two were like that." No, Quinn said waving his arms. "We're just friends, that's all." After Haley had gone away to look after other students, Quinn decided to open up his system. Strength 11. Agility 11. Stamina 10. It really did give me an extra stat point after all. After sucking Layla's blood, it seemed like he had gained a stat point. Quinn remembered after defeating opponents the system would give him an additional quest to suck his victim's blood. The reward was a stat point, but it seemed like there was no need for him to get a quest. Was Quinn able to drink anyone's blood and gain stat points? What happened if Quinn was to drink Layla's blood again? Would he gain another stat? There were so many questions Quinn wanted answers for. He looked at Layla lying there peacefully. Right now, he was in complete control of his body and there was no urge for him to suck on Layla's neck again. After checking his teeth, he realized that they had gone back to normal. That's when Quinn decided to look around the room, until he finally found what he was looking for, a syringe with a needle. Quinn looked around the room and saw that Haley was busy dealing with another student. He carefully took the syringe and hid it behind his back, and then quickly scooted over to where Layla was once more. "I'm really sorry about this, Layla," Quinn said, "but you're going to have to be my guinea pig." Quinn took out the syringe and carefully looked at where Layla's veins were. Luckily, Layla was quite pale, making her veins more visible. Quinn searched carefully for the right spot and was ready, but just as Quinn was about to extract some blood, he heard someone crash into the room. "Is Quinn here?" a boy's voice said. "Isn't that Peter?" Quinn immediately put the syringe in one of his trouser pockets and went to see what was happening. "Quinn, you're here, come quick, I've been looking everywhere for you." "It's Vorden, he's in trouble." Although Quinn had no idea what was happening, just from looking at Peter's face he could tell it was serious. Quinn then looked behind to see Layla lying there still sleeping away. It was important for Quinn to be there when Layla woke up. He had to convince her to not tell anyone her secret, but right now it seemed like Vorden was in trouble. Quinn then thought back to the incident at the canteen. When Quinn was in trouble, Vorden stepped up to help him. Although there probably wasn't much Quinn could do to help, he wouldn't know if he didn't try. What kind of person would he be if he couldn't help Vorden now? "All right, come on," Quinn said. "Let's hurry." The two of them quickly ran through the hallways until they had finally reached the assembly hall. It was currently a large empty hall with marble flooring and a stage at the front. It hadn't been used for anything yet so far, but it was the area where the students would be called if they were to have a meeting. When the two of them entered the assembly hall, there were already multiple students there mumbling about a commotion. "Did you see what happened?" "Yeah, that guy is a monster, how could he do that?" Luckily, the second-year students were here to stop him. The assembly hall was complete trashed. Craters and rubble had formed on parts of the walls and ground. Burn marks and other things were there as well, and there was even blood. Something Quinn could smell the second he had entered the room. What happened here? Quinn asked. Where's Vorden? Clearly, a fight had taken place here and Quinn feared the worst. I don't know, Peter replied. Me and Vorden were busy messing around practicing my earth ability together. That's when a bunch of second years I'd never seen before came up to us asking for Vorden. Vorden told me not to worry, but of course, I worried, so I followed them. That's when I saw them take him to the assembly hall, but 2 of the students stood guard and wouldn't let me come inside. I didn't know what to do, so that's when I came looking for you. Quinn and Peter then went around asking the students what happened, but when they did, the students seemed to avoid the question or completely ignore them, as if they were told not to tell anyone what they had seen. While Peter continued to ask the students that were still in the hall about what happened, Quinn already knew that they wouldn't give him any more answers, so he started to do some inspecting of his own. The smell of iron in the room was thicker than anything else to Quinn, and it led him to an area where dried up could be seen on the floor. Inspect. Name, Vorden Blade. Race, human. Blood type, O. Quinn started to inspect the battle scene and found more traces of blood, but when he used the inspect skill on them, it wouldn't show him any information at all. It would only show some question marks. Do I have to use the inspect skill on them in person? Quinn thought. It was a shame the blood on the floor had already dried up, otherwise Quinn would have used the syringe he had on hand. Just then, Peter had finished questioning everyone and returned to Quinn. It doesn't look like anyone wants to talk, Peter said. Figures, let's just head back to our dorm, who knows, he might have returned. The 2 of them then headed back to the dorm room together, and when they entered, they were surprised to actually see Vorden already there. However, something wasn't right. Vorden wasn't his regular self. Just by looking at him, Quinn and Peter could tell he had been in a rough fight. Bruises and scuff marks everywhere, large cuts on his back. He looked like he had been in a tough battle. Not only that, but Vorden didn't even greet them when the 2 entered. The Vorden they had come to know was not the same Vorden right now. Vorden just stayed there lying down on his bed. Vorden, what happened? Is everything all right? Peter asked. Yeah, just leave me be, I'll be fine, Vorden said. If you stay near me, you will just get hurt anyway. What are you talking about, Vorden? Peter shouted. Look at you, you have to go to the doctor's office. Come on, let's go. Just leave me alone, please, Vorden said quietly. Quinn, come on, say something, he needs to go to the doctor's office, right? But as Peter turned around to seek support from Quinn, Quinn was nowhere to be seen. Even he thinks I'm a monster, Vorden mumbled to himself. Just outside the dorm room, Quinn was leaning up against door, panting hard and sweating. Although he had no reaction when looking at people anymore, it was different when he saw Vorden. Vorden still had fresh cut marks all over his body, and the smell coming off him was strong. Suddenly Quinn felt like he had a craving for a little bit of blood. It was something he could control. It wasn't like last time where his body had taken over, but it had brought back bad memories for him, and he was a little afraid of what might have happened. I really need to find out what's going on with this strange system ability I have. Then a thought came into his head. There was a pending problem that he still hadn't dealt with. Although Vorden was acting strange right now, Quinn knew he was safe. Whatever problems Vorden were dealing with now would just have to wait. Every second wasted meant there was a chance for Layla to wake up, and who knew what would happen when she did. Just then, at the same time, in the doctor's office, in the corner at the back of the room, Layla slowly started to open her eyes. What happened? Layla said. Where am I? As Layla looked around the room, she started to rub her neck, and at the same time images had flashed through her head of what had happened at the library. She remembered everything. When images of what had happened to Layla started flashing through her head, she immediately started to get this tingling feeling over her body. She was reacting to the memories of Quinn biting into her. It wasn't a painful memory, but quite an addictive feeling. The sensation of the blood rushing through her body. Her face was starting to turn a little red just thinking about it. That's when she lifted her hand and placed it on her neck. I can't feel anything. Oh, so you're awake, Haley said with a smile. You were sleeping so peacefully there, I didn't know when you were going to wake up. How did I get here? Layla asked. Oh, a boy came in and dropped you off. He said he was your friend. I can't remember his name, but he had short black curly hair, Haley said with a smile, thinking about the toe of them. This confirmed Layla's thought. Quinn must have brought her here right after biting her. Haley then noticed that Layla was rubbing the side of her neck with her hand. Oh, I got rid of those 2 marks for you. Do you remember what happened? Once again, as she thought back to the memory of Quinn biting her, she started to get goose bumps all over her body. I'm not sure, maybe it was a beast? Layla replied. A beast? Yeah, I hear sometimes a stray can come out with the students while they're training through the portals, Layla said, nervously hoping that Haley would believe her lie. Well, whatever it was, I'm sure someone else will deal with it. It's just a good thing you're safe now. Quinn was running through the school halls as fast as he could. He needed to make it to the doctor's office before Layla woke up. He had no idea how Layla would react. Not only that, but what were the consequences of biting someone? If it was like some of the vampire novels Quinn had read in the library, some vampires had the ability to turn others. Right now, Quinn thought that might be a better situation than everyone finding out about his ability. Finally, Quinn had reached the doctor's office and he pulled the door wide open. Oh, hello again, Haley said. If you're looking for the girl, you just missed her. She left a little while ago. Really? Did she happen to say anything? Quinn asked. Judging by Haley's reaction, it didn't seem like Layla had said anything, but he needed to make sure. Oh, you mean about the wound? She said that a beast might have attacked her. Although I highly doubt that. It looked more like snake bite, but how did it manage to get into the school and all the way up her neck? Haley continued to ramble on. She often did this, as she was left on her own a lot of the times, being the only doctor stationed at the school. It was a lonely job. Thanks for letting me know, Quinn said as he closed the door. Why did Layla decide to keep it a secret? Quinn thought. He had basically assaulted the poor girl. Could it be that she didn't remember what happened, or maybe she was planning to use it blackmail against him, but that didn't make sense. She had nothing to gain. Quinn had always thought like this. People, when they did something, always did it for selfish reasons. That's just the way people were. He couldn't believe that Layla would keep this a secret for no reason. Just then, while Quinn was outside the doctor's office thinking of what to do next, he felt a hand on his shoulder. You and me, we need to talk, Layla said. Had she been waiting here this whole time? This was bad. Layla clearly indicated that she knew something, which meant losing her memory of the events were unlikely. The two of them then headed to the library where the incident took place. Quinn felt a bit more relaxed. Taking him here meant she wasn't looking for a fight, as there were other students in the room. The two of them sat at a table and activated the orb so only the two of them could be heard. As they looked into each other's eyes for a bit, Quinn started to run multiple scenarios through his head. If worst came to worst, he might have to silence her. What happened at the library? What did you do? Layla asked, rubbing her neck. Why bother asking if you already know what happened? Quinn said. Just tell me what you want. I don't know if you know this, but I kept an eye on you for longer than you think. After observing you for a while, I came to a conclusion. You're a vampire, aren't you? Quinn started to laugh nervously, hoping to throw Layla off track. He was actually amazed by how she had come to the conclusion so fast when it even took him a while. Even if she did see everything he had done so far, he didn't think this was the natural conclusion someone would come to. And why would you think that? I saw you lifting that boy's neck. At the time I thought you doing something else because I couldn't see clearly, Layla said as her ears started to heat up a little. But after what you had done to me, it confirms it. Quinn started to sweat slightly at the integration. He wasn't worried about Layla herself, but the trouble she could bring him in the future. Quinn didn't know what to say and thought he would wait for Layla to make her demand. Layla then took a deep breath before saying her next words. This is what Quinn was waiting for, her request. I want you to hear me out. I want you to make me a vampire. Quinn was so shocked by the words that had come out of Layla's mouth that he nearly fell out of his seat. What, do you realize what you are saying right now? Please, Layla said as if she was begging him. It's a childhood dream of mine. This type of things only happens in books or fairy tales, and now I have the chance for it to happen right now. She said with her eyes lit up. Now Quinn realized why Layla didn't tell anyone. Simply put, this girl was crazy. Layla had grown up her whole life reading fantasy stories and comics about all sorts of things. Before the whole war started, her father used to work as a writer, so her home was filled with books and stories, and her favorite ones were always about vampires. She loved everything about them, how they had to keep their identity secret to the world, the super strength they had, the super speed, and the fact that they could live on nearly forever. When abilities were realized to the world, it made fantasy stories a thing of the past. Many people read stories because they were that, fantasy. It allowed them to imagine doing something that they could never do, but now that humans actually had special powers, what was the point? However, the love for vampires never died down for Layla, it only grew. If abilities exited then that meant somewhere out there maybe vampires did too. When she saw Quinn's actions, she had already convinced herself that he was a vampire. Quinn was right when he thought a normal person wouldn't have come to the same conclusion, but that was because Layla wasn't a normal person. Layla then suddenly got out of her seat and started to bow down to Quinn on her knees. The students in the room, although couldn't hear their conversation, couldn't help but look at them. "Please, I'll do anything for you," Layla said. "All right, I understand, please get up," Quinn said. The two of them sat down at their seats again. Before Quinn started to speak, he let out a big sigh, thinking about how he was going to explain this to her. "It's not what you think," Quinn said. "I'm not a vampire, I became like this from an ability book." Suddenly the smile on Layla's face disappeared. "You know what that means, right?" Quinn asked. Layla nodded. Quinn was basically telling her it was impossible for him to give her this ability. The reason was a human body could only activate one ability. When learning an ability, it mutated the genes inside of your body, but once your genes had been mutated, they could no longer change or add a second mutation. Because Layla already had the ability of telekinesis, it meant Layla was unable to learn a second ability. "Then why did you hide this from the academy? Why did you tell them you had no ability? If you got this from an ability book, you can't be an original? Have you ever heard of an ability like this?" Quinn asked. Layla thought about for a while and realized there was nothing quite like it. There was never a record of an ability requiring someone to drink blood. But if you told the school you got it from an ability book, one that's not even been registered, and you aren't an original, you could make a fortune selling the book. Layla said excitedly. "I wish that was true, but I can't do that either," Quinn explained. "When I learnt the ability, the book simply vanished." Layla was debating whether Quinn was telling the truth or not, but she had no choice but to believe him. It was the only explanation of why Quinn was so adamant in hiding his ability. Ability books didn't just vanish, they were books. They could be passed on for others to learn. If people found out about this, multiple companies and the military would put immense pressure on Quinn to share the ability with the world, and with no powerful family backing him, Layla couldn't imagine what would be done to him. They would never believe him if he said he got it from an ability book and it disappeared. Quinn then proceeded to tell Layla about everything that had happened so far. About how his ability was a game, like a system, and it had given him strange quests and he could unlock skills. It was nothing like the vampire stories Layla used to read, but at the same time, it seemed like the system was applying similar rules. "Fine, I will keep this as a secret, but only on one condition. I want you to help you out," Layla said. "Clearly you don't know much about this thing, so much so that you had gone out of control and bit me in the neck. We can't have you going around school biting people. They'll take you away in a heartbeat. If you need to feast on someone, then feast on me," Layla said, placing her hand on herself. Quinn started to think about the situation. Having Layla as a helper was a big advantage. Quinn himself wanted to test multiple things about the system, and here he had someone offering to help for free. And it truly felt like Layla was telling the truth. Not only that, but Layla seemed to be more knowledgeable about vampires than himself. Perhaps she would even be able to help him in his research. "It's a deal," Quinn said as the two of them shook hands. Layla was happy that Quinn had accepted. The truth was Layla still hadn't given up the idea of being a vampire. Unlike Quinn, Layla wasn't too sure that what Quinn had was an ability in the first place. An ability was usually a specific set of skills, but Quinn had completely changed, as if he was no longer human. "All right, the first thing is first, you're going to need to take some of my blood," Layla said. "That way if you're getting hungry again, you can drink some of that." Layla then pulled down her shirt slightly and started to show her neck towards Quinn. "What are you thinking? We can't do it here in front of the library, and I'm not just going to bite into your neck." As the two continued to talk and chat about things in the library about what to do next, Vorden had entered the library and could see Quinn talking to Layla, both chatting and smiling away. "So you've forgotten about me that quickly, huh?" Vorden said. "You're just like the rest of them. I'll show you what it means to betray me, Quinn. If people are going to call me a monster, then I might as well embrace it and become one." That's all for today, guys. Like, share and subscribe to get new chapters as fast as possible.